What future faking is it's an emotional manipulation, or the things that you love or the things you want. Those are the things that they'll future fake about. Hi, this is Jim Brillon. Welcome to my YouTube channel where we talk about all things mental health. Today I'm going to be talking about something called future faking. Future faking is something that is familiar to people who might be living with a narcissist, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's something that you haven't heard of before. But what future faking is it's an emotional manipulation ploy or a tactic that draws people in. It's something that a narcissist will use intentionally to basically create a sense of intimacy and connection in a relationship, and also to get you to do what they want you to in the present. And future faking, by the way, is not something that only happens in intimate relationships. It can happen in the workplace as well. We'll talk about that. But an intimate relationship, what happens is the narcissist tends to target your dreams, your goals, and your desires. In other words, if they know the things that you're interested in, or the things that you love, or the things you want, those are the things that they'll future fake about. So it looks like, if they know that you really want to have kids someday, they'll say things about, once we're together and, we're going to have the cutest kids together. Or they'll appeal to, your fears of financial instability and talk about how they're going to support you and take care of you. Sometimes that also turns into a form of financial manipulation or financial abuse or control, because a narcissist will convince you at some point that why do you have to keep working that job? Because if I'm going to support you, and then you end up giving up your job, and now you're financially dependent on the narcissist. Often, future faking will happen in the love bombing or the early stages of a relationship, when a narcissist is basically trying to lure a victim and create that sense of connection, that sense of intimacy, when really they're really not great at intimacy. It's about the lies and the promises about the future. And there's some warning signs that you want to start to be aware of. One of the warning signs is that the relationship is moving way too fast. And that happens a lot of times in a narcissistic relationship, because they come on really fast and fury. And sometimes it's way over the top. It's super intense. Often in a narcissistic relationship, the sexual component can be really dramatic, and it can be, you have great sex, but the intimacy is not necessarily there. Future faking can be something as simple as repeatedly saying, I'll call you today, but then they never do. But it can also shift into things like promises to marry you, or living happily ever after. And one of the things to look out for is that fast-moving early relationship. If a new boyfriend or girlfriend on the first or second or third date, they're talking about going on vacations together, or buying a home together, introducing you to the family, or if they start taking you to look at houses, and while you're looking at the houses, they know that you love animals and you're interested in building a family. So they'll say, oh, well, that's where we'll put the dog house, and the kids are going to have so much fun in this backyard. And it sounds kind of negativistic to say that that people making dreams and plans about the future is future faking, but there's a difference between that kind of cute thing when people are getting together in a relationship and they're starting to make plans, because those plans are generally based in reality. But when you start to sense that the things that the narcissist is saying are just too good to be true, it's because they are. So you really have to do some reality testing with yourself, and also check your fantasy meter. If you get swept up in that fantasy relationship, that at least the narrative of fantasy relationship, then you can really get trapped. But if it starts to sound like a fairy tale, it probably is. So you really have to check yourself and make sure that you're not buying into a lot of the future faking. It can be things like just always making promises, but promises that they never really intend to keep. Future faking tends to engender trust, and it prompts you to actually give in to their wishes. It's a form of manipulation and control. It can happen in the workplace too, when an employer promises you, that promotion, but then they seem to never actually give it to you. It always seems to be like right around the corner, and maybe there's always a reason why we can't do it this quarter, but maybe next time. So those are some of the things that you want to start to check in with your own gut. If you start to recognize that those promises are never fulfilled, they're always pushed a little further down the road, a little further down the road. If they're wild promises that seem out of reach, they probably are. Future faking leads to cognitive dissonance, and it can really lead to self-erasure because you get so lost in the relationship and the fantasy of the relationship. And it can lead to helplessness and hopelessness, and really a lot of sadness and loss over a dreamed of future that never actually comes true. When you start to recognize that somebody is future faking, making up, kind of wild promises that they're never keeping or never fulfilling, and your gut starts to tell you that there's something wrong here, that can be an early warning sign to vacate the relationship. You have to really kind of check in with your own gut and trust those things. You also have to keep your expectations realistic, and I think that's true anytime that you're dealing with a narcissist. You have to keep your expectations reasonable, so that you don't get spun out into, fantasies of some future that they're spinning for you. And you want to take things slowly. Relationships really do, they build slowly, and two people new in a relationship, it takes time for you to build trust and to offer vulnerability and to build connection. If it seems like it's all happening way too fast and it's just way over the top and it starts to sound like some fairy tale or an episode of the lifestyles of the rich and famous, then you really need to stop and appraise what's happening. Things you want to look out for are the accelerated timing, when all those promises start coming way too fast and way too furious. And you want to really look to see if the person's actions match their words. If their words and their actions don't line up, then that's a cue, right? And if it sounds too good to be true, like they say, it probably is. One thing that you can do is you can ask them to explain their plans, ask for updates. If the person is saying, we're gonna travel to Spain next year and we're gonna spend the summer in Tuscany. That sounds really exciting. I mean, I'd like to do that. Who wouldn't want to do that? So if they're making these plans or making these promises to spend the summer in Tuscany, you might want to ask them, have you talked to the travel agent? Have you figured anything out about that? It's like, what's the latest update? I'm excited about it. Tell me, where are we at on that? And if you start to recognize that, there's really no progress being made towards those things, then you have to check in with your gut. And I think this is the problem a lot of times in a narcissistic relationship, is that you don't trust your gut. And a lot of times there's a trauma bond that happens, and maybe because of things that happened in your past, you're kind of, you lose that trust of your own intuition, or maybe the trauma that happened to you bonds really well with the trauma that the narcissist is bringing into your life. So you have to really kind of be honest with yourself. The problem is that you want to believe them, right? And that's one of the ways that you get drawn into the psychological trap. Future faking is very similar to another term that's called breadcrumbing. Breadcrumbing is when a person will kind of keep you strung along in a relationship that's not really a relationship. A lot of times it will happen through social media, where you'll be getting text messages, and they'll be setting up dates and times to meet, but they never follow through. And that's something to be aware of as well. Often a narcissist will have different narcissistic supply in their life. You may not be the only person that they're in a relationship with. And if they're focusing on one relationship and you become kind of secondary, then they'll send messages and they'll do things to kind of keep you strung along, but really not following through with those things. It can be really, really frustrating, and it keeps you stuck in that relationship. So I hope this is helpful. If you find the videos helpful, like and subscribe, sign up for notifications, and we'll keep coming out with new material talking about issues related to mental health. Thank you.